So we're going to look at the cell cycle and how we make more cells. And remember from the cell chapter, cells can only get but so big. And we're going to look at the difference between prokaryotic cells, cells that don't have a nucleus, and eukaryotic cells, cells that do have a nucleus. So first of all, prokaryotic cells are pretty simple. Remember, they don't have little compartments in them. So basically the DNA just has to make a copy of itself. We call this process binary fission. And this is called asexual reproduction. And if you think of it like you have a pencil, that means you have one. In this case, there's only one parent that's contributing the DNA. And at the end, you have two identical cells that are prokaryotes through this process of binary fission. Eukaryotic cells are a little bit more complicated. You can see because of the nucleus, we're going to go through a lot of different phases, and it's a little bit more involved. So just to go over real quickly, this is called a cell cycle. And just to give you an idea, just since we've been talking, every second, on average, the adult human, male or female, divides about 25 million new cells every second. And this can equal up to 2 trillion cells a day. So that's the process we're talking about now. And remember, eukaryotes have a nucleus, they have no organelles, so they're a lot more complicated. Before we can actually look at all of these phases, you need to understand a little bit about some of the background that we need to prepare in order to be able to go through these phases. So first of all, DNA. Remember that this has all the information. It's kind of like the instruction book or the control center for our cell in the nucleus. And so that helical shape is actually coiled around specific proteins, and then those are coiled even more. And it's organized into these very, very packed chromosomes. And so the chromosomes are made up of 2 identical sides, the left and the right, and a copy is made during one of the phases. And we call each of these identical sides sister chromatids. They're joined in the middle. The last place they're attached is called the centromere. And then there's little sections of DNA that code for proteins. These are called genes. In humans, we have 2 different types of cells. We have body cells. So these are all of the cells in our body other than the reproductive cells. So your skin cells, your heart cells, your hair, your teeth, your blood cells, muscle cells, all of those are called somatic or body cells. All of those have 2 copies of DNA, or they're called diploid, because we get 1 copy from our mom and we get 1 copy from our dad. The exception to this are the reproductive cells. In females, this would be the egg. In males, this would be the sperm. And these are called gametes collectively. And they only have 1 set of chromosomes because they're going to join to make a new individual. And we'll talk more about this process a little bit later. Humans have 46 chromosomes, and so we talked about this, 23 pairs. And these 23 pairs are called homologous because they're about the same size. So here is something called a karyotype. And so scientists can do this, especially if they're worried about the mother when she's pregnant. If they're worried about some type of chromosomal disorder or abnormality, they might do a karyotype to make sure that there are no problems in the chromosomes. And if you notice, even though they're kind of bent differently, because they're in 3D nature, they're still about the same size and they have the same banding patterns. These are homologous chromosomes. If I look here at this spot on this chromosome, I'm going to find a similar gene in the same spot on another one. So this is a picture of an individual's chromosomes, another vocabulary, karyotype. We see the 23 pairs. 1 through 22 are called autosomes. They're the non-sex determining chromosomes. And the 23rd pair, these are the sex chromosomes. And if they're both the same, if they're XX, it means it's a female. If they're XY, that means it's a male. And this is kind of a little bit of what I went over, and you have this in your notes as well, about a karyotype, autosomes, sex chromosomes, and then homologous pairs. The cell cycle, what we saw a few minutes ago here, this is where